part one of this three-part series, we explored the background to the setting up of the Real del Monte Mining Company in 1824. We followed the journey of 15 men, 9 of whom were Cornish, as they left Liverpool bound for New York on the packet ship Corinthian. Our story continues as those men arrive at the port of Tampico in Mexico to begin their 19-day journey through the Tierra Caliente and into the mountains of the Sierra Madre Oriental. This film attempts to trace the route of that epic journey through a land then virtually unknown to the British, using selected entries from Robert Ould's diary and an account later published in the London Magazine. Join me as our intrepid party of Cornishmen and their colleagues set off on muleback through a strange and exotic land, enduring many privations as they make their way to the great silver mines of Real del Monte and Pachuca, located well over 2,000 metres above sea level. After a 19-day voyage from New York, the men arrived off the coast of Mexico. The following day, they approached the bar of Tampico, a large sandbank deposited at the mouth of the river Panuco.
Saturday, May 22nd. As we drew near the land of rain, the sky began to be darkened, and on our near approach the weather was cloudy, rainy and cold. The shore presents a wretched and barren appearance. The wind was fresh and the anchorage insecure, and we were forced to coast along during the rest of the day and night. Sunday, May 23rd. This evening we anchored under the fort and a little way from the bar. As soon as we had anchored, we fired a gun as a signal to the pilot to come out to us. At 6 p.m. the pilot came in a 12-oared barge manned by Indians. There appeared a great variety in their colour, as well as features, seemingly of different races. Monday the 24th of May. This morning the Chevalier de Rivapinole, Mr. Rule and Mr. Gambini, with Daly and Mr. Rule's servant, went ashore in the forenoon. The boat came off for the purpose of taking the manifested things ashore. Tuesday the 25th of May. Mr. Vetch and the remainder of the party went ashore with the whole of the luggage. The natives are so much accustomed to the narrow channel. We passed without difficulty and landed at the bar at 11 o'clock. Here there are a few cottages, the residence of the barkeeper, custom house officer and commandant. There is also a fort, but very far from formidable, with a soldier in each canoe. At 12 o'clock we re-embarked, after receiving the permit from the officer. These were made of the hollowed trunks of trees, about 40 feet long by 4, and impelled by paddles. The breadth of the river for a considerable way up seemed to be about half a mile, the banks covered with different kinds of shrubs and trees, but none of any great size. On the side of the river were many birds of great variety of plumage, past several alligators floating on the surface of the water, about 10 to 12 feet long and not the most inviting appearance. The distance from the bar to Tampico Pueblo Viejo is about 12 to 13 miles, and about 8 miles from the bar. On the right-hand side of the river lies New Tampico. From this place the river widens considerably and branches off to the right to St. Luis Potosi. The left gets narrower and runs into the lagoon. Through this we proceeded after showing our permit to a guard ship stationed here, and to an officer at a small guardhouse. Pueblo Viejo is situated upon the border of a large lake, the whole of which is exceedingly shallow. The appearance of the town on approaching it is very miserable, though perhaps this may partly be attributed to a conflagration that destroyed great parts of it about a month before our arrival. In crossing the piazza to our lodgings, we saw a party of 50 Indians roofing the cathedral with palm leaves. The whole party set out howling and hissing in the most deafening manner. This we found was intended as a mark of respect and courtesy towards us. We soon found that it would be impossible to set off until Thursday morning. Wednesday, the 26th of May. At 7 o'clock the thermometer 70 degrees in the house. To a stranger who has left Europe for the first time, everything appears novel, the colour of the people, their dress, huts and manners. With the beautiful green and lively look of the various trees, all so different from what we have been accustomed to, make it most interesting.
The reason the party was unable to begin their journey was due to a local official who was angered that their ship's captain had not presented himself to him. He subjected them to a thorough interrogation. He had heard a rumour that the ship from which they had disembarked might have been carrying Spaniards with subversive intentions. Their requests for travel passes were therefore placed on hold. It was not until the following day that the party began their journey in two groups led by Mexican muleteers. The map the men had brought from England proved to be useless, and they were wholly reliant on their guides for directions. Auld vividly describes the route taken by the group, which we will attempt to follow by map.
Thursday the 27th of May, 1824. Left Pueblo Viejo this morning at 9:45, forming a cavalcade of about 40 mules. Weather heavy and cloudy with a few drops of rain. Our route for the most part lay through a wood of low trees and shrubs. Past Tampico proper, a small village with a few scattered cottages about 2 leagues distance from Pueblo Viejo, and arrived at Los Ranchos de las Tortugas at 1:45. Thermometer 82.5 degrees, having travelled 16 miles. Tortugas is situated on a high ground, the country around thickly wooded but no timber trees. It consists of one hut with a large open shed for the accommodation of travellers, and under which we bivouacked. Whenever we were in situations which afforded nothing to eat, we had recourse to 2 miraculous tin cases which had been prepared in New York, and which never failed to yield us excellent provision. The air having been exhausted from them, they were hermetically sealed. Nothing was wanted but hot water to prepare for us a luxurious repast. I could not help being struck by the fastidiousness and prejudice of the lower classes of England. The artisans of our party turned up their noses at this unaccustomed sort of food, and at our humble lodging, while their superiors, many of whom often had fared so much worse in the heart of Europe, thought themselves remarkably well off. Here we experienced for the first time the attack of the garrapatos, a small light brown insect, nearly the shape of a bug. They fasten themselves in the flesh where they occasion much irritation and pain. I am told they will continue with us until we are out of the limits of the Tierra Caliente. Friday the 28th of May, at 5:30, thermometer 81 degrees, left Tortugas at 6:45 and rode through forest of the palm tree by a winding path, and arrived at La Resque, a small hut at 10, where we remained to have breakfast, thermometer 82 degrees. I have just made the discovery that there are too many parrots in this country. Their hoarse and discordant clamours are very annoying. To complete the discord, a most abominable sort of cricket never ceased for one instant to persecute our ears. It commenced raining very hard, thermometer 77.5 degrees. Detained here in consequence till 12:30. The forest path was bad at all times, and with the heavy rain was almost impassable, taking the mules to the saddle girths in mud and water. Rained incessantly from the time we left La Resque till we arrived at the Rancho de Bichin. All arrived wet and grumbling at 2:30, having travelled 15 miles. Bichin is a miserable dirty place, but the master of the house at which we stopped had an appearance truly patriarchal. At this place we had the black bean of the country, which forms almost the principal food of the inhabitants. Saturday the 29th of May. Rained during the whole night, waited some time expecting it would clear up. At 10 o'clock thermometer 79.5 degrees. At 10:30 set out, the road still bad. At half a league from the hill of Rancho Nueva lies the Rancho de Buena Vista, where we intended to pass the night. Arrived at Buena Vista at 3:30, having travelled 21 miles. Buena Vista is situated upon a small hill. Here one sees nothing but an immense forest of palm trees, extending on every side, as far as the eye can reach, with some large mountains in the distance. The accommodation was tolerable, but the landlord exceedingly uncivil. He refused to procure us the slightest refreshment or accommodation, and would not even sell us a fowl, although he had them in abundance. As soon as he was gone, his wife, who was more civil, gave us the best accommodation in her power. The house was too small to admit of our swinging our hammocks, so that almost all of us lay down in our cloaks. Not the army of Xerxes, not that of the Myrmidons, equalled in numbers the swarm of garrapatos, which poured down upon us. I passed the night without closing my eyes. Sunday the 30th of May. Heavy and continued rain all night, cleared up at about 7:30. Thermometer 75 degrees. Left Buena Vista at 7:45 and at 9:15 passed a small plain called Tansons. Reached the river Chicayan at 9:45. This river is in general fordable, but in consequence of the immense rains, it was swollen so much that we were obliged to cross in a dirty canoe, the mules swimming. Breakfast at the hut of the ferryman, and continued our journey at 11:15. The unloading all our baggage and unharnessing our beasts in order that they might swim the stream occupied so much time that we could get no further in this day than to Rancho Los Alacranes. situated at about an hour's ride from the torrent. Arrived at Alacranes at 1:30, travelled 16 miles. Alacranes is delightfully placed upon a fine sloping hill, with several other green knolls around it. The hut is comfortable, a dry shed, under which we swing our hammocks. As soon as we were in bed, our muleteers began a serenade. It consisted of extempore compliments to us, sung after the Spanish fashion, and accompanied on an old guitar which they had found. They're getting into good humour as they approach the Tierra Fria, as they call the mountainous country. They have an extreme aversion to the Tierra Caliente, and great fear of the diseases with which it abounds. Monday the 31st of May, 1824. This morning thermometer 74 degrees, started from Alacranes at 7 and arrived at Los Huayvos, a miserable place where we breakfasted at 10:15 and again set off at 11. The country is finely diversified by hill and dale, and has a more interesting appearance the further we advanced. Saw many trees and shrubs quite unknown to us, but very little timber. Reached Tantouca at 2:30, the last hour's ride being performed in a pour of rain. Mr. Vetch and I lodged at the schoolmaster's, the rest of the party at the Casa del Comunis, a hut built at the expense of the town to receive travellers gratis. Travelled 23 miles. Tuesday the 1st of June. In the morning thermometer 74 degrees, and at midday 78 degrees. The weather continues so unfavourable. Our mules are so tired that we are obliged to prolong our stay here. Tantouca is a large scattered village, with a few shops and a church. This is the first edifice I have seen built of stone and mortar. I was struck with the astonishment betrayed by some of my companions, who had never been in a Catholic place of worship before. Thermometer at night 76 degrees. Wednesday the 2nd of June. Recommenced our journey at 8:15 this morning. Reached the river Calabozo, broad, deep and rapid, at 10:45, and crossed in canoes. Breakfast at a small hut on the other side and set off at 1:45. Heat now excessive, thermometer 87 degrees, and on the ground 100 degrees. Arrived at Las Flores at 2:30 after riding a distance of 14 miles. Travelled through a beautiful tract of country, thickly set with low wood. Las Flores is by far the best house I have seen. It is built of stone with a fine large corridor, and is situated in a plain surrounded by chains of magnificent mountains. This has been the hottest day that I have ever felt. Thermometer in the shade at 4 o'clock is 92 degrees. Thursday the 3rd of June. Left Las Flores at 8:15 and reached the Ranchon Tecoloco at 8:45. Crossed a small river of the same name. This we forded 9 times in the course of an hour. Ascended the Chevaux de la Mesa, a steep stony hill. On reaching the summit we turned round and saw the whole extent of country we had passed through. Thermometer 88 degrees. Started at 1:45, descended the hill on the other side and reached Huachutla, a small Indian village upon a hill at 2 o'clock, having travelled 17 miles. From this place the country is called Tierra Templada. Friday the 4th of June. Set off at 7 o'clock, thermometer 84 degrees. Arrived at Santano after ascending and descending an almost perpendicular mountain covered with loose stones, under a burning sun. Thermometer in the shade on the ground, 100 degrees. Arrived at Cayaguel, which consists of half a dozen very dirty small round cabins at 4 o'clock, having travelled about 24 miles, a great part of which was over the mountains, most fatiguing riding. Thermometer at 88 degrees in the shade, and at 100 in the sun. We preferred sleeping in the open air. Plenty of orange trees, under which the greater part of the party bivouacked for the night. Saturday the 5th of June. Thermometer 76 degrees. Left Cayaguel at 7 o'clock. Waited at a small village for the mules coming up the valley through which the river Cañada runs. The 2 sides of the ravine are perfectly perpendicular. They are at so small a distance from each other, and so lofty that they exclude the view of everything but a narrow strip of sky. Arrived at Tlacolula at 2:45. Travelled about 18 miles, having crossed and recrossed the river Cañada 58 times. It is a rapid river, and being filled with large stones makes it very difficult for the mules to keep their feet. It requires particular care and attention on the part of their riders. Tlacolula is a small village of wretched circular huts situated in a gorge between 2 high mountains. The Casa del Comun was so small that we divided into 2 parties, one of which remained there, and the other proceeded to the house of the curate, the only decent house in the place. He seems to hold an almost unlimited sway over the minds of the poor people, and is regarded with great respect. Sunday the 6th of June 1824. Before setting off this morning, attended Mass in the church and witnessed the ceremony of marriage and baptism. Left Tlacolula at 9:30, breakfast at small village of Chapula, and left it with Captain Vetch and the guide and Allen at 1:45, leaving the rest of the party there. For about 3 leagues the road continues through the valley. Saw a plantation of the sugarcane, and several Indian huts on the hills with enclosures for maize, etc. After leaving the valley, ascended an exceedingly steep hill. Arrived at Piñolco, which is situated on the top at 5:30, the thermometer 70 degrees, having travelled 21 miles. Piñolco is in quite a European climate. It consists of a single house built of stone, and is now more like a farm than anything I've seen. The enclosures are dry storm dikes. Here we had the usual bread of the country, baked of maize in the form of flat cakes and heated upon the fire. This day crossed the Cañada 50 times, and the Embocadica, a branch of it, 4 times. In 2 days we have forded the Cañada River 112 times. Monday the 7th of June 1824. At Piñolco the whole of this day, Captain Vetch taking observations, etc. From a hill near this, the country appears all broken into hill and dale with a great deal of wood. Piñolco itself puts one in remembrance of the English scenery. It's surrounded by high hills, the tops of which are seldom seen for the clouds that continually rest upon them. Tuesday the 8th of June 1824. Left Piñolco at 6:15. Passed several villages and entered Tiguiltipan at 9:30, a distance of 13 miles. The road to this is mountainous with low wood. Tiguiltipan is a large village. The house is better built than any of those we have been in yet. There is a commandante in whose house we lodged, an alcalde and a good church. Wednesday the 9th of June 1824. Started at 8:30. In about 2 leagues ride from Tiguiltipan, the face of the country underwent a total change. On the one side the country is all fertility and loveliness. A stone's throw on the other, it is bare, rugged and desert. We all stood silent, struck by the awful and repulsive scene around us. This is evidently the terrible effect of volcanic eruptions. Early in the morning the thermometer stood at 60 degrees, and later in the day 68 degrees. When we arrived at New York, the heat appeared to us insufferable at 70 degrees. Now we suffer from cold. Reached Ocalcalayo in the valley at 12 o'clock, crossing a small rivulet of the same name. Ascended another hill bare of herbage, and descended to Rio Grande at 2:30. Thermometer 84 degrees. This is a fine, rich strip of a valley between 2 barren hills, with a river flowing through it. Here they cultivate the cotton plant, etc. We halted not far from the village of San Pedro. The accommodation tolerably good, travelled 18 miles. Thursday the 10th of June. Left Rio Grande at 6:30, ascending an almost perpendicular mountain, about 1700 feet altitude. The country is still melancholy and desert. It is indeed the land of desolation. Travelled across a tableland where the maguey or aloe flourishes, a plant of great consequence to the Mexicans, from which they extract an immense quantity of liquor, which they allow to ferment. They call it pulque, and are extremely fond of it. The village of Atamilco el Grande is seen at a great distance. Arrived at 12:30, having travelled 18 miles. Grande is situated upon an extensive plain, and is a good-looking village. Here we were most hospitably treated by a priest, who appeared tolerably well acquainted with good living. Friday, the 11th of June, 1824. Left Grande at 6:45. I begin to feel that summer clothing is out of season. Our road as far as Omitlan lay through a flat plain, reddish soil and not many trees. In Omitlan we breakfasted. The road is very bad, rough and uneven on the side of the hill. Entered Real del Monte, that is built on very unequal ground indeed, at 12 o'clock amidst the ringing of the bells, having travelled 15 miles.
Join me in the final episode as we find out what awaited the first Cornishmen to set foot in Real del Monte, explore the fate that befell those men, and analyse the legacy they created, which has bound the nations of Cornwall and Mexico together for 2 centuries.